LiberalViewer presents.
So, welcome to the November 20th edition of LiberalViewer Sunday Live clip Roundup. Thanks for joining me. You can give this video a thumbs up, not based on the first sentence I said there, but based on the rest of the video if you like it. If you enjoy the 18, well actually there's actually now a bonus clip, so 19 clips that I picked out from the weekend's Sunday morning news analysis shows. If you like them, give me the thumbs up, and it should be a really educational and informative, fair use media criticism and political analysis show. As usual, my clips come mostly from those Sunday morning news analysis shows from the big five corporate outlets of ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, and Fox News, the so-called corporate media here in the United States. If you want to follow along on the three subtopics I'm covering, which are basically Trump's promises, his cabinet, and fighting Trump, and there's some overlap between them, but those are the three subtopics. I put links down in the video description if you're watching as a recorded show, time indexes where you can skip between the topics. For everyone, there's a link down to this clip list of the 18 clips I'm using. After number 4, there's also going to be a bonus clip from this Obama news conference I just watched that actually had several things I could have taken, but I had to get the show started, so I picked one about how he was going to, or how he talked to Vladimir Putin about the possible hacking of our election by Russia, and he didn't really talk to him at this latest meeting, or like they kind of passed by each other and spoke briefly, as he'll explain in the clip I show. But I'm actually, and then it looks like the clip, I don't think it really got hacked, but it almost looked like it got hacked by the Russians when he was talking about getting hacked by the Russians, which is kind of weird. I'm going to start off the show, though, after a little bit of hiatus for Alec Baldwin on Saturday Night Live. He came back to show the new president-elect Trump and what he's doing with his promises. And there's also a brief discussion of the issue of Mike Pence getting booed and then lectured at going to the Broadway show Hamilton, and I'll be discussing that and showing Mike Pence's reaction in some of the clips later. But I want to start off with the parody of Mike Pence and of Alec Baldwin and of Kellyanne Conway during the cold open of Saturday Night Live last night, mostly about how Donald Trump is not going to follow through on his promises. And I basically took two parts of that, and you'll see there's an edit in the middle for this. It's about 2.5 minutes long, and I will discuss it with you after we watch it together over here.
Well, what do you need, Kellyanne?
A time machine. But I also came to tell you that you've got a special visitor. This is Peter Chuck Sell. He led our campaign office in Western Virginia.
Mr. Trump, it is an honor, sir.
Nice to meet you, Peter. So where are you from?
Virginia, sir. It's a little town called Grundy. And that's coal country, sir. I've been out of work for 2 years now. Rough times, but then you came and said that you were going to bring every single job back to our town.
Every single one?
Yes, sir. Hell, if you could build a wall that's 2,000 miles long on the Mexican border, I'm sure you could help us.
How long is that wall?
It's 2,000 miles.
2,000 American miles?
I cannot wait to see the look on those Mexicans' faces when you make them pay for that wall. They say it's going to cost $25 billion.
Fantastic, Pedro. Thank you very much. $25 billion. It can't be that much. Oh, God. Oh, God. Don't worry, Donald. It'll be okay. Hillary's still ahead in the polls.
Mr. Trump?
Yes, Kellyanne. What's the matter? Is there something on your shoulder?
Yes. All of this. Mr. Trump, Mike Pence is here.
Great. Perfect.
Hello, sir.
I heard you went to see Hamilton. How was that?
It was good. I got a free lecture.
I heard they booed you.
Absolutely.
I love you, Mike. You're the reason I'm never going to get impeached.
Sir, we have a few problems. The Democrats are already pushing back on our Illegal Immigration Act because they say finding 11 million illegal immigrants is going to be hard.
Impossible, probably.
And then they say it's going to be even harder to deport them.
So maybe let's not do it.
Don't do it?
Yeah, scrap it.
Scrap it.
Scrapped.
Okay, you know what? Maybe we'll just talk about that later. Let's move on to Obamacare. As you know, 20 million people use it, and it sounds crazy, but a lot of them like it.
Keep it. Let's just keep it.
I'm sorry, keep it?
Yeah, keep it. All of it. No change.
Okay, yeah, hey, let's just hold that for later, all right? Also, they're gonna make it hard for us to hire a special prosecutor to put Hillary in jail.
Then don't do it.
Don't do it.
Scrap it. She didn't do anything. Scrapped.
So, yeah, I like that. Like I said, mostly it's talking about how it looks like Donald Trump coming into the presidency may not be fulfilling a lot of his more extreme, ridiculous promises. And that I think I talked about that a little last week, and also in my post-election, what happened, my own reaction to election night I did the day after the election, where I talked about the possibility that the Trump movement may actually have peaked at this point because his, white working class voters may become more and more disillusioned as he can't deliver on those ridiculous promises that you saw Alec Baldwin kind of satirizing there, and I think a lot of that was good. One of the things he mentioned about Mike Pence there was that Mike Pence is his guarantee that he won't get impeached, and I'm actually not sure that's true. I even read this wild theory that the Republican Congress is eventually going to impeach Trump because he's too far off the reservation from Republicans and is hurting Republicans, or I don't know, and that actually Mike Pence is the kind of Republican they'd actually like to install as president, like a reliable establishment conservative is more what Mike Pence is, more than Donald Trump, of course. And you saw that they also talked a little bit about the visit to Hamilton where Mike Pence got booed and lectured. He said he got a free lecture, and that's actually the first part I'm going to talk about, is how people are fighting back against the Donald Trump and how they plan to fight back, including the Hamilton cast. But before I get to those specific clips, I want to show this ABC This Week with George Stephanopoulos news report from the co-host Martha Raddatz, where she actually covers all three of my topics: the cabinet picks, the promises that Donald Trump may or may not be following through on, and then also the people who are fighting back against Donald Trump, including Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, I think, is in this report. But specifically look at the reporting on what happened at Hamilton, because I'm going to contrast this to the Fox News clip later with Mike Pence's reaction. They really, on Fox News Sunday, they really cut down what Donald Trump tweeted. They took out the whole thing about safe spaces, which you'll see is in the tweet that Martha Raddatz reports on, while covering 4 different lessons we learned about Donald Trump in the last week. Oh, and I think it's a really good overview report of the last week over in this clip.
You will be so proud of your president. You'll be so proud.
First lesson: to the victor goes the spoils. And for those who passed Trump's loyalty test, the rewards are huge.
Jeff, come up. Where's Jeff? Get over here, Jeff.
There's the early endorser, Senator Jeff Sessions.
Donald, welcome to my hometown, Mobile, Alabama.
Sessions stuck with Trump throughout the campaign, through the highs and lows, even after that Access Hollywood tape.
You're exaggerating a little bit, and I don't know that he said he did that against their will. That's what I'm saying.
His reward? The Justice Department. Trump's other picks so far, loyalists who share his worldview. Reince Priebus gets chief of staff. Steve Bannon, Trump's chief strategist in the White House. Mike Flynn, national security advisor. And Congressman Mike Pompeo gets the CIA. A second lesson for Trump: it's family first.
This is the moment, and Donald Trump is the person to make America great again.
While we don't yet know if they will have formal roles in the White House, Trump's family appears to be wielding enormous influence in the transition. Ivanka and her husband Jared Kushner are the power couple to watch. Here he is strolling the White House grounds with Obama's chief of staff. And Ivanka, right there this week for Trump's first meeting with a head of state. A third lesson of the week: Trump will be Trump. so get used to it. We saw that Friday night in New York at the Broadway show Hamilton, where there was some boos for Vice President-elect Pence and an unusual direct appeal from the cast.
We are the diverse America who are alarmed and anxious that your new administration will not protect us.
So the president-elect who made this promise during the campaign,
I'm going to be so presidential that you people will be so bored,
couldn't help firing back with a tweet storm. The theater must always be a safe and special place. The cast of Hamilton was very rude last night to a very good man, Mike Pence. Apologize. And the fourth lesson, the election didn't settle the argument. In fact, we could be at the beginning of a long political and cultural war. Trump's headline picks already taking heat. Flynn's under fire for calling Islam a cancer, and his tweet that fear of Muslims is rational. Bannon already defending himself against charges of anti-Semitism and racism. And Sessions, who 30 years ago was rejected by the Senate Judiciary Committee for a federal judgeship.
I am not a racist. I am not insensitive to blacks. I have supported civil rights activity in my state.
Denying those charges to this day. The next Senate Democratic leader, Chuck Schumer, told me Sessions will get some hard questions.
These are troubling things, and the only fair thing to do is ask a lot of questions, very thorough questions, and then make an opinion.
And let's dig deep.
So you saw a little bit of a brief look there from ABC as to how Democrats are going to fight back. They looked at some of the controversies. No controversy on Mike Pompeo discussed in that clip, the CIA nominee. They talked about some of the other controversies. I did think the ABC report, other than being like all the other corporate news media, not talking about the way Mike Pompeo was like bought by the Koch brothers, and now the Koch brothers are like basically going to run the CIA. I don't know. Well, that's a little bit of an overstatement, but there is evidence that points in that direction, let's say, and that wasn't covered in any of the corporate media, including that ABC clip, but that ABC clip was the best overview of all the issues that I'm going to be covering. Like I said, the promises that Donald Trump may or may not be keeping, his cabinet picks, and some of the controversies about Jeff Sessions and Mike Flynn and the Steve Bannon, and there have been some possible other choices floated. Looks like Rudy Giuliani may actually be the Secretary of State, which would be incredibly bogus, I guess. And even Senator Rand Paul, I'm going to show a clip near the, or I think all the way at the end there, where Senator Rand Paul is saying that we should not have a neocon Secretary of State. Both John Bolton and Rudy Giuliani are the unrepentant neocons in support of the Iraq War. I'll talk about that at the end. But I wanted to move on to this next clip. This is on the whole Hamilton issue. I showed some coverage there from ABC of the Hamilton cast talking to Vice President Mike Pence, and how Donald Trump said, you know, our theaters should be safe spaces, which that seems a little bit extreme and reactionary. But Mike Pence, talk about your like robo candidates. Remember the robo Marco Rubio? Mike Pence gave almost this exact same answer on Fox News Sunday and on CBS's Face the Nation. I didn't take the Face the Nation clip, but here he is saying, you know, nice things about the Hamilton cast, saying that he wasn't offended. You know, he was there with his daughter and her cousins. Doesn't that make it his nieces and nephews? But for some reason it's his daughter and his cousins. Almost the exact same talking points on both Fox News Sunday and Face the Nation. And he wasn't offended by what they said. He leaves it up to others as to whether it was the right venue. And, well, that's Mike Pence's reaction summarized. And the one thing he didn't ask about, either Chris Wallace here in this Fox News clip or John Dickerson, they didn't ask about the whole sexual orientation question and Mike Pence's record on that, and the fact that, you know, Broadway and several of the people in the cast are LGBT people. And so I'll talk about that after you see Mike Pence's reaction over here.
Left, and I got to ask you about the subject everybody is talking about today. You know what it is, and that is the fact that you went to see the Broadway musical Hamilton on Friday night, and afterwards the cast addressed you as you were walking out of the theater about their concerns as to whether Mr. Trump will protect diversity in our nation. Here he is.
We truly hope that this show has inspired you to uphold our American values and to work on behalf of all of us. All of us.
Now, Saturday morning, Mr. Trump tweeted this: the cast of Hamilton was very rude last night to a very good man, Mike Pence, apologized, and he tweeted about it again at 6:23 this morning. Governor, what did you think of the cast comments, and did you consider it rude?
Well, first off, my daughter and I and her cousins really enjoyed the show. Hamilton is just an incredible production and incredibly talented people, and it was a real joy to be there. And you know, when we arrived, we heard a few boos and we heard some cheers, and I nudged my kids and reminded them that's what freedom sounds like. And but at the end, I did hear what was said from the stage, and I can tell you, I wasn't offended by what was said. I'll leave to others whether that was the appropriate venue to say it. But I do want to say that the basic element, the center of that message is one that I want to address, and that is I know this is a very disappointing time for people that did not see their candidate win in this national election. I know this is a very anxious time for some people, and I just want to reassure people that what President-elect Donald Trump said on election night, he absolutely meant from the bottom of his heart. He is preparing to be the president of all of the people of the United States of America. And to watch him bringing together people of diverse views, bringing together people that differed with him strongly, seeing him talk to leaders around the world, I just want to reassure every American that in the days ahead, I'm very confident that they're going to see President-elect Donald Trump be a president for all of the people, and we embrace that principle, and we're going to work hard to make that principle every day that we serve.
And just to button Hamilton Gate up, do you want or expect an apology?
Well, as I said, I would leave that to others, whether that was the appropriate venue for that. But you know, I will tell you, Chris, if you haven't seen the show, go to see it. It is a great, great show, and you know, and I'm a real history buff, and so my daughter and I and her cousins really enjoyed it.
Well, so I've seen it too, so we can say Pence and Wallace, 2 thumbs up. Governor Pence, we want to thank you. Thank you for joining us. Always good to talk with you, sir.
So, yeah, not only, like I said, if you are someone like me who watches all the 5 different Sunday morning news analysis shows, you'll see that what Mike Pence said there in answer to that question is almost exactly word for word what he said to John Dickerson over on Face the Nation. And what I would criticize both Chris Wallace on Fox News Sunday and John Dickerson on Face the Nation for not asking about was specifically the idea of sexual orientation, because that's actually kind of an open question. How is Mike Pence's, like, weird views on LGBT rights, how is that going to affect the Trump administration, where, he's like, in some ways, Donald Trump came as like a New York liberal and has said some positive things about LGBT rights, and he even said something positive about transgender bathroom rights in Trump Tower, but then he backtracked on that. So that would be a good thing for the corporate news media people to ask about. None of them asked about it. The only place I saw it mentioned was over in a joke on Saturday Night Live. This is Colin Jost making a 20-second part of Weekend Update last night, and I'll discuss it after we watch it together here.
Pence on Friday was booed by the audience after seeing the Broadway hit Hamilton. Of course he was booed. He's a guy from Indiana who believes in gay conversion therapy. Visiting Broadway is how people from Indiana realize they're gay.
So, I don't know, it's a little disappointing that of all the places I took my clips, all the 5 different corporate news media outlets The place that I ended up getting that joke from, and the mention of Governor Mike Pence and his belief in gay conversion, that didn't come up in any of the interviews of Mike Pence. It only came up on Saturday Night Live's Weekend Update, but I wanted to show that to you. I have some other clips of Democrats talking about how they're going to fight back against various things that they want to oppose in the Donald Trump administration. But before, and you can see all those clips here on my clip list, but like I said at the beginning, I have this bonus clip that is just from about half hour before I started the show. It's one of the reasons I delayed the start of the show, was to finish watching President Obama's last news conference on a foreign trip. This is, I think he was in Lima, Peru. I took the Fox News version of this, and this is also public domain video, I think, from the White House channel. This is him talking about, he was asked a question. It was like a multi-part question, so I'm not going to show the question from the reporter, but this is when he gets to the part about, the question was, did you talk to Vladimir Putin about the hacking of the U.S. elections? And he starts off talking about the things he did talk to Vladimir Putin about, and then he does talking about, he didn't talk to Vladimir Putin this trip about the hacking of the elections, but he talks about things he said to Vladimir Putin in the past on that issue, and then talks about in general how our society can fight that and the things that are within our control. And the weird part is, you'll see at the end, it almost seems like the feed gets hacked. I don't know if it's like a little power nudge from the Russians. That's really a conspiratorial interpretation. It's probably just some like glitch in the satellite or something. But I'll show the clip, and then you can decide. Let me know what you think down in the comment section as we watch that clip together. Let's see. I should actually make it just a little bit smaller before we watch it. And I should change these settings, because I just put this in right before we started. You can see this is from less than an hour ago. Oh, here it is, and we'll watch it together here.
With respect to President Putin, I didn't have a meeting. We talked briefly while we were in between sessions, and the conversation that I had with him was consistent with the conversations I've had with him over the previous several months, indicating to him that we are still deeply concerned about the bloodshed and chaos that's being sown by constant bombing attacks by Assad and the Russian military against populations in Aleppo, and the need for us to arrive first at some sort of humanitarian ceasefire and begin moving towards a political transition of some sort. And I talked to him about Ukraine and the need for us to get Minsk done. I urged him to instruct his negotiators to work with ourselves, with France, with Germany, with Ukraine, to see if we can get that done before my term is up. As usual, it was a candid and courteous meeting, but very clear about the strong differences that we have on policy. The issue of the elections did not come up because that's behind us, and I was focused in this brief discussion on moving forward. I had already made very clear to him our concerns around cyber attacks generally, as well as specific concerns we had surrounding the DNC hack. I don't think this will be the norm, but as I've said before, the concern I have has less to do with any particular misinformation or propaganda that's being put out by any particular party, and a greater concern about the general misinformation from all kinds of sources, both domestic, foreign, on social media, that make it very difficult for voters to figure out what's true and what's not. And let me put it this way. I think if we have a strong, accurate, and responsive press and an engaged citizenry, then various attempts to meddle in our elections won't mean much. If generally we've got elections that aren't focused on issues and are full of fake news and false information and distractions, then the issue is not going to be what's happening from the outside. The issue is going to be what are we doing to ourselves from the inside. The good news is that's something that we have control over. All right? Gardner Harris.
So there were a couple weird glitches in there, even one where you could see the video feed cut out. But yeah, I think that's just normal satellite stuff from Lima, Peru. But it is a little weird. It happened during the discussion of Putin hacking our elections. As to whether that was a robust enough response, especially given that in some ways it seems Vladimir Putin may have won our elections. I don't know. But his last point there about needing a media that is robust and can let people know the difference between fake news and real news, well, I mean, that's actually one of the reasons in my small way I want to contribute and keep doing my LiberalViewer channel. That was always one of the things that I was committed to, was showing how you can tell when the media is telling you something that's not true and what facts are legitimate and how you go about debunking and analyzing and criticizing different media reports. And that's a skill that I took from my lawyer days as a public defender, a criminal defense attorney. Basically, my job was to try to find the flaws in what the government said happened in criminal cases. And that's actually, I think, one of my better skills, is that I can find the holes and find the mistakes and find the flaws in things much better than I can build things, I think, and create positive arguments. That's, in some ways, it's kind of a curse, but it's also a skill. So I plan to do, in my own small way, not that I'm as big as, say, like even Media Matters or a lot of other outlets that do that, but I think it's, PolitiFact tries to do certain things with the politicians, but I think that President Obama did make an important point there at the end, that one of the reasons we're vulnerable to that type of misinformation and hacking and suasion from a foreign power is because we don't have a really informed electorate, and we're not really focused on the issues. We're looking for these, stories that sway the momentum in the last days of the election or whatever. But in some ways, I think maybe the FBI is more responsible for that than Vladimir Putin. But Hillary Clinton, I think, is ultimately responsible, but that's a whole other issue. And speaking of the elections and the candidates in the elections, the next series of clips I want to get to are Democrats talking about how they are going to, continue fighting Donald Trump, and not so much what Barack Obama was saying, but like specifically issues that they want to fight him on. I was reading the live comments along the way, as I always do, and I saw this comment from I think it's Hoodie Cat Productions. About the problem of, should we normalize Trump? Should we fight him and show that his views are, the whole not my president thing? And, the problem is, it's actually the U.S. Constitution. I hate to say it. I really like the U.S. Constitution here, but in a lot of ways, it's the U.S. Constitution that is normalizing Donald Trump. Once the electors vote on December 9th, from the Electoral College and make him the actual president-elect. And I saw some comments along the way about how that might not happen, but as Martha Raddatz said in a clip I'm not taking from ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos, that's really wishful thinking. I think the chances of that happening are, well, I mean, it has been a very strange election. I didn't think Donald Trump would get elected, but I think the Electoral College is going to normalize Donald Trump by making him the president-elect of the United States, and in a lot of ways that normalizes him, but that doesn't mean that you stop fighting him. And that was actually a question that Bernie Sanders answered on NBC's Meet the Press, talking to Chuck Todd. Chuck Todd starts off quoting the New Republic, saying that Democrats should get Donald Trump to apologize for the nasty things he said during the campaign before they start working with him. And here's Bernie Sanders' response to that, which I think in some ways responds to what Hoodie Cat Productions said in the comments over here.
The progressive movement, Democratic Party, is having a debate about whether to work with Donald Trump when there is agreement. I want to read for you something that Eric Sasson of the New Republic had to say about this debate. To so many Democrats, any mention of finding common ground with Trump is a step towards accomplishing the exact thing we fear most, normalization. By prematurely offering to work with Trump before he has shown even the slightest bit of contrition, congressional Democrats are hollowing out the argument that they made for months, that he's unfit for office, and that is precisely the argument that needs to be made now more than ever, that it is up to Trump to prove to us that he is able to lead. We shouldn't make it easy for him. Bottom line is this, essentially, do you not work with him until he shows some contrition on some of the social issues?
Look, let us be very clear, Chuck. When Donald Trump helped lead the birther movement, that was nothing less than a racist effort to undermine the legitimacy of the first African-American president we have ever had. That was racist. That was disgraceful. The African-American community and all of us deserve an apology. When he talks about Latinos or Mexicans as criminals and rapists, that is outrageous. When he says that one of the largest religions in the world, Islam, people who are Muslims cannot visit the United States or enter the United States, that is an outrage. On those issues, let me be very clear, speaking only for myself, there is no compromise. We have come too far as a country to try to move forward in a non-discriminatory way, to go backwards and see us divided up by racism or xenophobia. On the other hand, issues like raising the minimum wage, you know, Donald Trump has talked about he is not going to cut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. He is going to work to reestablish a Glass-Steagall legislation. He wants to rebuild the infrastructure. Those are issues that some of us have been working on for years. And if he wants to work with us on those issues, I accept that.
So you don't accept the premise that you shouldn't work with him under any circumstance?
Right. But I do think the point of that article is right. He has said outrageous things, and he needs to apologize to the American people. But there are people all over this country who are really frightened. But the other thing, Chuck, is climate change. It is beyond comprehension that we have a president-elect who thinks that climate change is a hoax when the whole scientific community is telling us...
Senator?
Yeah.
Right. But I'm going to go back to this other point. What do you say to the progressives that say, hey, the Republicans essentially united against President Obama, and guess what? It was good politically for the Republican Party. What you're describing is going to be perhaps good for those workers you're talking about, but it may be bad for the Democratic Party. What do you say to those progressives?
Well, I think we need to protect workers. We need a good strategy to make sure that, in fact, we push our agenda. Look, on the issues, Chuck, that I'm talking about, these are the things that I have been fighting for years. But there is no compromise, none whatsoever, on bigotry. There is no compromise on climate change, because the future of the planet is at stake. We need a strategy, and I'm going to work on the strategy, to go to Michigan, to go to Wisconsin, to stand with working people, to demand that we reverse the decline of the American middle class.
Senator Sanders, that's all the time I have for today. Thanks for coming on and sharing your views, sir. And,
So that's Senator Bernie Sanders' answer about how people should work with Donald Trump on certain issues and oppose him on others, and the whole normalization question he kind of addressed in an oblique way, I guess. I mean, I think it kind of answers the question I had there from Hoodie Cat Productions in the live comments during the show. But I'm going to show some more senatorial reaction to Donald Trump and ways of fighting him in a minute when I get to Senator Chuck Schumer, who was on a couple different shows this morning. But before I go to another senator, I wanted to show a couple quick clips from CNN State of the Union, where they had this person who is challenging Nancy Pelosi to be the House Minority Leader. His name is Tim Ryan. He's a congressman from Ohio. One of his bona fides to be the new leader of the Democrats in the House of Representatives is that he won a district in Ohio that Donald Trump also won, so he knows how to speak to those voters. And first I want to show this teaser that Jake Tapper did for his interview with Tim Ryan, and I don't know, Jake Tapper kind of has a weird sense of humor, I guess, and well, you can see how he tells you that Tim Ryan is challenging Nancy Pelosi in the House of Representatives in the quick teaser over here.
The calls for Nancy Pelosi to step down, they're coming from inside the House. An uprising on Capitol Hill as Pelosi's power is threatened by one of her fellow Democrats. Her challenger will be here next live.
As we gather once again.
They're coming from inside the House. I actually thought that was funny. I don't know. It's kind of a weird sense of humor, but I don't know. Maybe I have a weird sense of humor. You can tell me if you like Jake Tapper's joke there about it's coming from inside the House. But more importantly, I think Jake Tapper made a good point in his first questions to Tim Ryan at the beginning of the interview, where he asked him basically about what Senator Bernie Sanders was saying at the end of his answer in that previous clip, which you hear over and over again from various parts of the Democratic Party, that they have to go after those white working class voters in Wisconsin and Michigan and Ohio and Pennsylvania that basically lost the Democrats the election by, not that many votes, but just in some of these districts, they didn't win over those voters. And so you'll see Tim Ryan say he wants to, have a deeper economic message for those voters. But when Jake Tapper asks him, how is it going to be different from what people were already saying, I don't think his answer is that strong, as I will discuss with you after we watch that clip together here.
For the role of House Minority Leader is here with me, Congressman Tim Ryan of Ohio. Thanks so much for being here. I appreciate it. So you're challenging Pelosi for House Democratic leader, and you say that you think the Democratic Party cannot win back the majority with its current leadership, and you say the party needs an economic message, a deep economic message. I don't really understand what the message is in terms of how it might differ from what we heard from Nancy Pelosi or Hillary Clinton.
Well, I think we were talking a lot about issues that weren't deeply economic, and I think that provided a huge opening for Donald Trump to come in, and that led to the disaster that happened on Tuesday.
What were the Democrats talking about too much, and what were they not talking about enough?
Well, I think from the House of Representatives side, if you go and look back to the month or two or three before we even left to come home to campaign, we were talking about things like the Zika virus and other issues. I'm for increased funding for the Center for Disease Control. Of course, we need to fund that, and we need to help deal with the Zika virus. But that's not a deep economic message. That's a national message. That's a message in a couple of regions in the country. And I think things like that throw us off track. We need a brand as a party that says we are the party that are going to help working class people, white people, black people, brown people, gay people, straight people, improve opportunity for them to grow their wages, to have security, economic security. And we got off that message. And when we don't talk about economics, we lose elections.
So I did hear Hillary Clinton talk about raising the minimum wage, and I did hear her talk about an infrastructure bill, and I did hear her talk about a lot of these issues that you're referring to. You're just saying that people in Ohio didn't hear it enough?
Obviously, there was a lot of noise through it, but here's the deal. We have to talk about moving forward. I can't, in good conscience, hang this election around Nancy Pelosi's neck, of course. But moving forward, we have to win congressional seats in areas of the country that voted for Donald Trump, even in my district where they voted for me and they voted for Donald Trump. So I think I'm uniquely qualified because I know who these people are. And, some of them are friends of mine, neighbors of mine who voted for me and voted for Donald Trump. We have to get those people back into the fold. And as I told my colleagues, I know in my heart that we cannot win the House back under the current leadership. It's time for a change. The American people asked us to make a change here, and we've got to do it. And it's not easy. We're in the middle of a family fight here, but we got elected to come to the United States Congress. There's only been 10,000 members of Congress in the history of our country, Jake. 10,000. Wearing this pin is an honor. And with that comes the opportunity to have to make some really tough decisions. And sometimes they're family decisions.
Well, let me ask you about a tough
We've
decision.
got to move in another direction.
Considering that your district went for...
So I think Jake Tapper's questioning there was pretty revealing, because I don't think Tim Ryan had a good answer. He wasn't really even willing to say that Nancy Pelosi's economic messaging was responsible for the Democrats losing in any parts of the election. And I don't know. I don't think Tim Ryan is going to beat Nancy Pelosi, but not that my predictions are necessarily all that... I guess unless you're one of my patrons or one of my fan funders, you're getting my opinion for free. So I guess you're getting what you pay for in that sense. But I think someone who is going to wield some power, unlike Tim Ryan, is the new Senate Minority Leader, Chuck Schumer of New York. And he was on a couple different shows. I want to show two clips of, he was talking both to Chris Wallace on Fox News Sunday, and then the second clip is talking to Chuck Todd on NBC's Meet the Press. And in both clips, he was talking about ways he's going to wield the power. You know, it's a very divided Senate, and they still have the filibuster unless the Republicans take away the filibuster, which I suppose is something, it's called the nuclear option. And but this first clip, the second clip is kind of about the nuclear option and Supreme Court justices a little bit, but the first clip is from Fox News Sunday, and it's Chris Wallace at the end of Chuck Schumer discussing various ways that he's in agreement possibly with Donald Trump on trade issues and infrastructure issues. You'll see Chris Wallace says, well, this is kind of a kumbaya moment, and that's when Chuck Todd mentions three specific things that he thinks he can stop Donald Trump from doing, and he's the Senate Minority Leader. He's the one who's going to lead any possible filibusters. So if you're wondering what are the top three things the Democrats in the Senate can stop, that's what Chuck Schumer is going to tell you over in this clip.
Paid maternity leave.
We should work out something that's strong and good, but I'm open to it.
So this is a kumbaya moment here we're talking.
No, because there are many issues where we'll oppose him tooth and nail. When he goes against our values, goes with special interests. Let me give you three right off the bat. He's going to try to repeal ACA. He won't be able to do it. Obamacare. He won't be able to do it because now even he, after his meeting with President Obama, said, oh, I want to keep the good things. Well, you can't keep the good things without keeping ACA. Forget about repealing or modifying Dodd-Frank. Dodd-Frank,
financial regulation.
Financial regulation after the banking interests and everybody else helped drive us to a great recession. We're not going to undo it, period. And I have the votes. I think we have the votes to block it. He should forget about it. And this idea of a wall, we already passed. John McCain and Chuck Schumer, bipartisan, an immigration bill that was comprehensive, that did a lot, and was much tougher on the border than a wall would be. So on that, and when he
yeah, but wait a minute. What he's saying, Senator, is secure the border first, build the wall, and then you can start worrying about immigration reform.
No. Put it all together.
And if he says wall first?
We'll say do it all. If we were to just do the wall, we'd never get the rest. Got to be all together.
Let's talk about a.
So that seemed like some red lines there that Senator Chuck Schumer was drawing, that there are a few issues that Democrats are going to filibuster and are going to stop Donald Trump from enacting if he tries to enact the wall, the changes to Obamacare that require 60 votes. And I mean, that sounded a little bit like there were things that Democrats might be able to do. And the other Chuck Schumer clip I want to show you has to do with the Supreme Court, as I promised. And Dodd-Frank on whether there's going to be financial regulation. That's another really big thing that Democrats can stop Donald Trump from doing. I mean, he seemed to be talking about being for the working class, and then of course he's going to implement what the Republican Congress wants to do, which is totally deregulate Wall Street in a way that screws the working class. But At least Chuck Schumer says that Democrats have the votes to stop that. So I guess if Chuck Schumer is correct on that, then that's good news. And then the other thing that the most annoying thing about all this is what the Republicans did with Obama's pick for the Supreme Court. They basically stole his final pick, and as long as all the Republicans get to do is replace Scalia, I mean, I guess that's okay because Scalia was already way to the right, but we have no idea what's going to happen in the next 4 years, and the chances of the Democrats taking back the Senate in 2018 based on the number of seats that both parties have at risk, it's really a difficult climb. But Chuck Schumer seems to think that they still have some power to stop Supreme Court nominees, which is what he told Chuck Todd over on NBC's Meet the Press this morning in this clip.
Supreme Court, obviously you were not pleased with how Senate Republicans handled the Merrick Garland nomination. I assume, barring some miracle for your side, it is not going to be brought up during the lame duck. How
pray for that miracle.
Are you going to? Are you comfortable filibustering any pick that a President Trump makes? And if that happened, do you fear the nuclear response, essentially, by the Republicans?
Well, first, I hope that President Trump picks a mainstream candidate. A mainstream candidate is somebody you may not agree with on every issue, but basically believes in precedent and basically believes in following the law.
Why shouldn't? What does that mean? Can he
interesting
nominate somebody in your mind that is, say, Ted Cruz? Is he too conservative for you?
I'm not going to get into specific candidates, but we'd hope it would be mainstream. If it is mainstream, you have to remember the last 4 nominees, 2 from President Bush, 2 from President Obama, got bipartisan support on the bench. If he doesn't nominate a mainstream candidate, we're going to go at him with everything we have, or her. Go at the candidate with everything we've got, because this is so important. Now, you know, Senator McConnell has said let's not use the filibuster, but they don't come with clean hands, having delayed Merrick Garland for a whole year. And furthermore, I was the person when the rules were changed back a few years ago, when Leader Reid changed the rules. I said, let's not do the Supreme Court. We should have 60 votes, which we still do, because we should get bipartisan support. So I hope both President Trump and Leader McConnell would recognize those facts.
All right, Senator Chuck Schumer, I got to leave it there.
Thank you.
Democrat from New York, the new Senate Democratic leader. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
So I hope that it's true what Chuck Schumer said there, that Democrats will be able to filibuster a non-mainstream Republican pick for the Supreme Court. I mean, of all the things that have happened during this election, I mean, I can swallow the fact that the Electoral College gives Donald Trump the presidency, even though he lost the popular vote. Those are the rules. That's happened before. It's only, what, like the 5th time or the 6th time, something like that. But, I mean, that's, like I said, that's the Constitution of the United States. And I'm a believer in the Constitution. That's actually a part of the Constitution I think we should change, because it's not very democratic. But as long as, and there's a way to do it through legislation, just if enough states that have 270 electoral votes all pass statutes that say they're going to give all their electoral votes to whoever wins the popular vote, well, then you don't have to change the Constitution. That already solves the problem. But I don't know if that's ever going to happen, but it might happen. And I would definitely be in favor of that. But I don't think is bogus. But what I do think is bogus is what they did with the Supreme Court, because that is, I mean, if they had actually given Merrick Garland a hearing and held a vote, and he hadn't gotten 51 votes, or even if they'd filibustered, the thing is, he was like such a moderate candidate to begin with. He was kind of a disappointment to people like me who want more liberals on the Supreme Court, and who would be really happy to see a liberal replace Antonin Scalia, but even if a conservative ends up replacing him, I just hope that's the only pick Donald Trump gets, but that is just one of those, vagaries of fate. We don't know what's going to happen. And anyway, I want to move on to the next topic, and I'm reading your live comments as I go along. I want to get to the topic of promises. And you know that Saturday Night Live clip I showed at the beginning was really all about Donald Trump breaking promises. Do you think I should replay that clip as sort of an introduction to this topic about how Donald Trump may or may not be backing off of certain promises? I'm basically going to cover his promise to drain the swamp in Washington, which doesn't look like it's really going to happen. And then the more scary promise about whether he's going to have a Muslim registry. But do you think I'm looking at your comments as I'm deciding here? Should I replay the Saturday Night Live clip? What do you think? I don't see anyone answering the question, so but I don't know. I'll start replaying it. Maybe I won't play the whole thing, but it's basically how Donald Trump is not going to be able to keep his promises with Alec Baldwin playing Donald Trump over here.
Well, what do you need, Kellyanne?
A time machine. But I also came to tell you that you've got a special visitor. This is Peter Chuck Sell. He led our campaign office in Western Virginia.
Mr. Trump, it is an honor, sir.
Nice to meet you, Peter. So where are you from?
Virginia, sir. It's a little town called Grundy. And that's coal country, sir. I've been out of work for 2 years now. Rough times, but then you came and said that you were going to bring every single job back to our town.
Every single one?
Yes, sir. Hell, if you could build a wall that's 2,000 miles long on the Mexican border, I'm sure you could help us.
How long is that wall?
It's 2,000 miles.
2,000 American miles?
I cannot wait to see the look on those Mexicans' faces when you make them pay for that wall. They say it's going to cost $25 billion.
Fantastic, Pedro. Thank you very much. $25 billion. It can't be that much. Oh, God. Oh, God. Don't worry, Donald. It'll be okay. Hillary's still ahead in the polls.
Mr. Trump?
Yes, Kellyanne. What's the matter? Is there something on your shoulder?
Yes. All of this. Mr. Trump, Mike Pence is here.
Great. Perfect.
Hello, sir.
I heard you went to see Hamilton. How was that?
It was good. I got a free lecture.
I heard they booed you.
Absolutely.
I love you, Mike. You're the reason I'm never going to get impeached.
Sir, we have a few problems. The Democrats are already pushing back on our illegal immigration act because they say finding 11 million illegal immigrants is going to be hard.
Impossible, probably.
And then they say it's going to be even harder to deport them.
So maybe let's not do it.
Don't do it?
Yeah. Scrap it.
Scrap it?
Scrapped.
Okay, you know what? Maybe we'll just talk about that later. Let's move on to Obamacare. As you know, 20 million people use it, and it sounds crazy, but a lot of them like it.
Keep it. Let's just keep it.
So, yeah, that's the Alec Baldwin, Donald Trump breaking promises, but that's Beck Bennett playing Mike Pence, and I'm about to play a Mike Pence clip that you can compare the Beck Bennett impression, which actually isn't that great an impression, but here's Mike Pence appearing on Fox News Sunday talking to Chris Wallace, where he's asking, is the Trump administration going to uphold its promise about draining the swamp? And I'm actually going to show Reince Priebus also answering this question in terms of the fact that Donald Trump is not putting the Trump organization into a blind trust, and his daughter is participating in presidential meetings and is also going to be running the business, and there's all sorts of conflicts of interest. And Mike Pence says two things I heard him say in multiple answers or on different shows. He says there's going to be a proper separation, that's not a legal term. It's just like whatever they think it means, a proper separation. And he keeps talking about how Donald Trump, he got into this to work for the American people so we can trust him. He's not going to profit from this. But it's actually really a big swamp of problems that I will. And then the other thing he says is that they're going to follow the law. But the thing is, there aren't conflict of interest laws that cover the president. It's really that conflict of interest laws that cover like executive branch officials don't actually cover the president. The president himself is exempt. And this is like an unprecedented situation, which Chris Wallace actually does a fairly good job of exploring with Mike Pence from on Fox News Sunday this morning over in this clip.
Donald Trump attacked Hillary Clinton for blurring the lines with the Clinton Foundation. Here's what he said.
It is impossible to figure out where the Clinton Foundation ends and the State Department begins. It is now abundantly clear that the Clintons set up a business to profit from public office.
But, Governor, now there's heavy criticism from all sides about Donald Trump's intention to turn over his real estate empire to his children. And the argument is that any company, any foreign government that wants to curry favor with the president will just make a deal with the Trump organization. In fact, one top Republican said to me, this could be the Clinton Foundation on steroids. How do you deal with that?
Well, I'm very confident working with the best legal minds in the country that the president-elect and his family will create the proper separation from his business as he goes forward. But look, I mean, one of the reasons why Donald Trump just won a mandate from the American people, winning states that Republicans hadn't won for a generation, is because he brought that business background. He didn't come out of a long political career. He came out of a career building things, creating things, creating jobs.
Sir, I understand
I'm
that.
very confident. He's very confident that we'll be able to create the proper separation.
But it's not just a legal question.
And I will tell you that he's completely focused on the people's business.
If I may just ask a question, sir, briefly, if his kids are running the business, and if we're talking about buildings here, if he doesn't divest himself of the business, a lot of people are saying turn it into cash, he's going to know who the kids are doing business with. In fact, there was just a meeting in the last few days with some of his business partners from India. Doesn't that create a tremendous danger of a conflict of interest?
Well, I can tell you, in a recent interview after the election, the president-elect summed up his view of his interest in his business life with 2 words. He said, "Who cares?" And I can tell you, sitting shoulder to shoulder with him through these interviews, watching him talk to world leaders on the phone one after another from hours after the election, the president-elect of the United States, Donald Trump, is completely focused on the people's business. And I promise you, and I can assure the public that they'll have the proper separation from their business enterprise. You know, you've met all of his kids. They are extraordinary men and women, fully capable of leading that enterprise. And I know he's going to lead America with 110% of his focus.
Finally, I've got about a minute left, and
Oh, well, I have Mike Pence's assurance that there's going to be a proper separation, whatever that means. So who cares? Because, you know, the Trump children are such good people, and there's not going to, you know, that's as good as a blind trust. The integrity of the Trump children, or I don't know. That whole thing is kind of bogus, as I said before I showed the clip. And Reince Priebus also does not really do a much better job of answering the question. This is a clip from NBC's Meet the Press talking to Chuck Todd on basically the same issue, and I think Chuck Todd did a better job of pointing out some of the conflicts, although Chris Wallace didn't do that bad a job on Fox News Sunday there. I'll be criticizing Fox News Sunday in a later clip, but that last clip wasn't so bad. But here's Chuck Todd basically raising the same issue of the drain the swamp promise with Reince Priebus, who's now chief of staff for the Donald Trump administration, outgoing chair of the RNC, and his answer is they're going to follow all the rules. But like I said, there's no actual law that prevents conflicts of interest for the president himself. The president himself is exempt from conflict of interest laws, and Reince Priebus doesn't give me a lot of assurance that they're going to do anything that stops Donald Trump from knowing that people who like stay at his hotels or give business to his hotels or all of his other business interests, that he's not going to know that happens, and it's going to affect various decisions he makes as president, or we're not going to be able to know because he's also kind of shut out the press, as Chuck Todd points out briefly in his question to Reince Priebus over here.
Obviously, Donald Trump ran, especially at the end, on the phrase, he used it a lot, drain the swamp. But there's a number of moves that have happened this week that call that into question, perhaps some conflicts of interest. His daughter Ivanka was seen pictured at the meeting with the Japanese Prime Minister. There is some businessmen from India who have deals with the president-elect's organization, Trump organization. They had a meeting with the president-elect, took pictures of it, sort of creating this idea that maybe they'll end up profiting off of the Trump name now that he's president in India. How are you organizing a divestment or a blind trust right now of Donald Trump and his businesses?
We're not going to get into the details of that, but that is being handled, and there is nothing being discussed of any import. The meeting
How do we know that?
Simply cursory.
Because you didn't bring the press in,
the
by
meeting
the
was
way.
Cursory. And look, all of these things all these rules are going to be followed, Chuck. There is going to be no violation of any of these rules. I can assure you of that. And as we move forward, those matters are going to be more clearly spelled out, and you're going to be aware of it. But look, the one person I can tell you that makes these decisions is Donald Trump. Families historically have been involved with their fathers in administrations. And I can assure you, though, what you're seeing Donald Trump do right now is bring the best and the brightest together to make the best decisions for America, for all Americans, no matter who you are.
But at the end of the day, how does he prove that he's not planning to use the presidency to profit? There have been reports that the Trump Hotel in Washington, D.C., that ambassadors were encouraged to bring their visiting delegations and have them stay at the Trump Hotel in Washington, D.C. Is that true?
No, it's not true at all, Chuck. And I think what we have here is it's truly a unique situation where you have a international business person that has done incredibly well in life, that is now going to work toward focusing 24/7 on being president of the United States and setting up a system, a legal system, to shield himself from any and all conflicts. That's what we're doing. That's what people are going to see. And in the coming days and weeks, the American people will see that.
The Wall Street Journal is recommending the following. The Trump family political business, Wall Street Journal, no member of the liberal media, at least their editorial page. The political damage to a new administration could be extensive, they write. If Mr. Trump doesn't liquidate, he will be accused of a pecuniary motive anytime he takes a policy position. They essentially believe it's untenable for Trump or his kids to have any control over the Trump organization while he's president. Does the president-elect share that view?
Look, we're looking at this right now, Chuck, as well. And like I said before, we're going to make sure that no matter what decisions are made, that they're going to be run through counsel. And as you know, there's a White House counsel's office that will be there, that will be issuing opinions. And these matters will all be dealt with. They'll all be dealt with accordingly. And Donald Trump, our new president, is going to spend every hour, every minute of the day making America proud of where we're going and making America great again, but also making the decisions that benefit everyone the most in this country. So I think we're just getting ahead of ourselves a little bit, but I can assure you the work will continue, and the best and the brightest will continue to be brought together no matter their background, their political affiliation, and all the rest.
Let me ask you a question about
the best and the brightest. Is that really what we're getting from the Trump administration? I have to tell you, while I was watching that clip with the live viewers, Sandy came in, and my dog Sandy, and she seemed very skeptical about that whole best and the brightest thing at the end there. You can... What do you think? Skeptical? I think she looked skeptical about the whole best and the brightest thing at the end. But Reince Priebus was not giving real assurances or any details of how Donald Trump... I mean, all he can do is liquidate the Trump organization and then put the resulting cash in the hands of some sort of independent person whose decisions he doesn't know where they're putting the money or what decisions they're going to make, so he can't make decisions as president knowing what those assets are, that, so it won't create all those conflicts that have already happened in like just the last week. So, and the chances, what are the chances that Donald Trump is actually going to sell the whole Trump organization rather than let his children and, of course, Jared Kushner, his son-in-law, they're going to control it, and then they're also going to be in his administration. There's no law to prevent it, and it's going to be like a huge conflict of interest, much worse than anything about the Clinton Foundation. It's, well, that's going to be a big subject if we have a investigative press anymore, which sometimes I wonder based on the clips I show you, but at least on this issue, they seem to have some interest, so it seems like there are going to be a lot of reports about how decisions by the Trump administration just happen to benefit people who sent a lot of business to the Trump hotels or otherwise benefited the Trump organization. And anyway, that's why I wanted to show you those last two clips from Mike Pence and Reince Priebus, and then I want to move from that promise, the drain the swamp promise that we actually hope Donald Trump follows through on, to one of the promises that are more scary, the whole idea of like a Muslim registry. And this is a clip from NBC's Meet the Press where Reince Priebus won't rule. Remember, the chief of staff for Donald Trump will not rule out the possibility of a Muslim registry, other than he says, oh, but it's not really going to be Muslim because it's going to be based on geography and whatever. We can watch that clip together, and then I will talk about it after we watch it. Like I said, this is, let me just make sure I get the right clip here. Yeah, this is from NBC's Meet the Press, talking about General Mike Flynn being appointed as National Security Advisor, and some of the disturbing things he said about Muslims, about fear. Islamophobia is rational, fear of Muslims is rational, which I've discussed a lot on this show. I'm not going to go into that so much, but I will talk a little bit about the unconstitutionality, remember, U.S. Constitution, unconstitutionality of Muslim registry after we watch that clip together over here.
About the appointment of General Mike Flynn to National Security Advisor. Essentially, there are two corner offices in the White House. You're going to be in one. He's going to be in the other. In February, Flynn posted a video listing bombings perpetrated by Muslims with the comment, "Fear of Muslims is rational." Can you equivocally rule out a registry for Muslims?
Look, I'm not going to rule out anything, but I wouldn't. We're not going to have a registry based on a religion. But what I think what we're trying to do is say that there are some people, certainly not all people, Chuck. Mm-hmm. There are some people that are radicalized, and there are some people that have to be prevented from coming into this country. And Donald Trump's position, President Trump's position, is consistent with bills in the House and the Senate that say the following: if you want to come from a place or an area around the world that harbors and trains terrorists, we have to temporarily suspend that operation until a better vetting system is put in place. Okay. And when that happens, when a better vetting system is put in place, then those radical folks, or excuse me, they'll not be allowed in, but then others will be allowed in, but only until that is done. But that's what General Michael Flynn believes, and that's what President Trump believes.
Does President-elect Trump agree with General Flynn that fear of Muslims is rational?
Well, he believes that no faith in and of itself should be judged as a whole, but there are some people in countries abroad that need to be prevented from, there are some people that need to be prevented from coming into this country. So I think that's where 99% of Americans are at.
All right. Reince Priebus, the next White House Chief of Staff. Appreciate the time, and thanks for coming on and sharing your views.
Thank you, Chuck.
You got it. Well,
So, I don't know, they try to hide it's not going to be based on religion, it's going to be based on people coming from all these Muslim countries, which I don't know if that's going to fly constitutionally, and certainly a registry based on religion is totally unconstitutional, because that's discrimination based on religion gets the strictest scrutiny under the U.S. Constitution that I was talking about. I think that would be a really bad thing if that were to happen. There was something kind of like that after 9/11, and they stopped it because it wasn't effective in stopping terrorism, and it was a real public relations nightmare. Or, it makes the, registering people, whether there's some sort of face-saving way of making it not based on religion, but it turns out all the people registering just happen to be Muslim. It's not good for the United States. I hope it doesn't happen. And the fact that Reince Priebus wouldn't rule it out there, that's kind of disturbing. But the next topic I want to get to is about the cabinet appointments. And this next clip is kind of like that. Last clip was sort of about the appointment of General Mike Flynn to the cabinet. This is another cabinet appointment. This is the head of the CIA, Mike Pompeo, saying that he's in favor of waterboarding, and that's also something that Donald Trump himself said on the campaign trail. And so this is both about promises that Donald Trump made on the campaign trail, and it's also about whether the cabinet officials are going to follow through on things that they said. This is actually a clip of Mike Pence that starts with Chuck Todd. This is John Dickerson on CBS's Face the Nation, showing a clip of John McCain saying we can't torture. It makes the United States, it's a PR nightmare. It's kind of what I was saying about the Muslim registry, but it's even worse when it comes to waterboarding and torture. And Mike Pence's answer is kind of like Reince Priebus's. It does not give me any assurances. It makes me actually, more worried than when I heard, before I heard the answer, as I will discuss after we watch that answer together over here.
Senator John McCain is worried about waterboarding. The Kansas Congressman Mike Pompeo, who's going to be going to the CIA, supports Mr. Trump's position that perhaps waterboarding should come back. Let's listen to what Senator McCain said.
I don't give a damn what the President of the United States wants to do or anybody else wants to do. We will not waterboard. We will not torture. My God, what does it say about America if we're going to inflict torture on people?
What's your response to that?
Well, I have great respect for Senator McCain, and what I can tell you is that going forward, as he outlined in that famous speech in Ohio, that a President Donald Trump is going to focus on confronting and defeating radical Islamic terrorism as a threat to this country. And we're going to have a president again who will never say what we'll never do. I think in President-elect Donald Trump, you have someone who believes that we shouldn't be telling the enemy what our tactics or our strategies are. And I know that in conversations with some leading Americans about playing roles in our administration, we're very excited about Congressman Pompeo's role at the CIA. We're very excited to see General Mike Flynn stepping into his leadership position. The team that we assemble, the President-elect assembles at the Department of Defense, will all advise him. But the American people should know that this is a president who on day one, January 20th, is going to focus on defeating and destroying ISIS at its source and confronting radical Islamic terrorism so it can no longer threaten our people or inspire violence here in the homeland.
At the moment, though, waterboarding is something the United States government does not do. So the enemy already knows that waterboarding is not something the United States does. Is it going to be reassessed by the Trump administration?
Well, I think the President-elect made his views on that quite clear during the course of the campaign. But as we go forward, what I can tell you is it's not going to be about a specific tactic. What I see in these meetings with the President-elect and candidates for our national security and our national defense is someone who is determined to surround himself with men and women of extraordinary background and capability. We've got real challenges around the world today, John, and the American people should know that President-elect Donald Trump is going to surround himself with men and women who are going to ensure our national defense. We're going to rebuild our military, but this is going to be a president that is going to be determined to destroy ISIS and to confront radical Islamic terrorism so it can no longer threaten our people here at home.
Finally, Mr. President.
So it was kind of another one of those evasive answers. You know, we're never going to say what we're never going to do, and not really ruling out waterboarding and torture, and I find that disturbing. And I find several things disturbing about other cabinet appointments, and I'm going to get to some of the more, some other news clips on that, including something about Mike Pompeo that didn't get brought up by any of the media, including Chuck Todd on NBC's Meet the Press in a minute, where he actually says good things about Mike Pompeo that I don't think are warranted. But first I want to show a brief clip from Saturday Night Live last night where Michael Che and Colin Jost both made fun of a couple cabinet appointments. First, Steve Bannon is this senior counsel, the alt-right Breitbart guy. Michael Che talking about that, and then Colin Jost talking about Jeff Sessions from Alabama and his bad civil rights record being put in charge of the being Attorney General, which includes being in charge of the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department. And I'll discuss that a little more after we watch that clip together here.
Half the country is worried that Trump is going to make America unsafe for women and minorities. The first guy he hired was the former chairman of Breitbart News and fitness enthusiast, Steve Bannon. Ugh, that face, though. Breitbart News has been criticized by the left for being a sexist, racist, white nationalist news site. Strong words. I don't know if I'd call it a news site. Calling Breitbart a news site is like calling the R. Kelly sex tape a rom-com.
Donald Trump also nominated Alabama Senator Jeff Sessions for Attorney General, even though Sessions was denied a federal position 30 years ago for making racist remarks. But you know what they say, if at first you don't succeed, wait 30 years until history lurches backwards.
And Jeff Sessions did get a lot of criticism from different people on, or different shows in the Sunday morning news analysis shows this morning, and that's not my criticism, but Mike Pompeo did not really get a lot of criticism. He actually got a lot of praise, including from Chuck Todd on NBC's Meet the Press, who talked about some of the things you heard on Saturday Night Live there about Jeff Sessions, and Steve Bannon, I think, is in this clip, but you'll see he says something positive without mentioning the big negative about Mike Pompeo that I will discuss after we watch that 1-minute clip from NBC over here.
Trump spent the weekend at his Bedminster, New Jersey club, meeting with possible members of his administration, including one-time rival and critic Mitt Romney, who is reportedly being considered for Secretary of State, as well as Michelle Reed, a Democrat who ran the school system in Washington, D.C. She could be the next education secretary. But if Mr. Trump has made one thing clear with his choices for national security posts, it's that he's not yet tacking to the middle, as many conservatives perhaps had feared or liberals had hoped. For National Security Advisor General Mike Flynn, who says militant Islam poses an existential threat to the United States. For Attorney General Senator Jeff Sessions of Alabama, a tireless opponent of illegal immigration, and someone who has been accused of making racially insensitive remarks that derailed a previous confirmation hearing before the U.S. Senate for a federal judgeship in the 80s. And for CIA Chief Representative Mike Pompeo of Kansas, tough critic of Hillary Clinton on Benghazi. He has gotten bipartisan praise for that pick. That's no team of rivals, though.
So that was a pretty good report, but he didn't mention about Mike Pompeo, or Pompeo, I can't even remember how to pronounce that, but that he is the representative from, he represents the district where the Koch brothers or Koch Industries is located. He's the largest recipient of money from Koch Industries. I think Meet the Press is actually sponsored by Koch Industries. I don't know if that is the reason that Chuck Todd didn't mention it. I saw it covered on MSNBC, like Rachel Maddow and Chris Hayes on All In with Chris Hayes both covered this. That's one of the reasons I know about it, but was not mentioned on any of the morning shows this morning. And when he came into Congress, he like immediately took on these two issues that didn't really benefit consumers or working people, but were big. You know, he wanted to get rid of was like consumer complaint databases that the government keeps. Like that was something the Koch brothers wanted, but and then I can't remember something about greenhouse or polluters, some sort of like database of polluters also. I can't remember the exact details of that, but nothing about that came up in regards to Mike Pompeo on any of the coverage this morning. I then also want to show this Fox News Sunday report where they not only didn't report on that about Mike Pompeo, but I think this report from Fox News Sunday about the cabinet picks and how it starts off with Chris Wallace doing this hit on the New York Times. They said that the process was in disarray, and yet he's way ahead of schedule. And then they go over to this Brian Yanis, I think his name is, the reporter. And you tell me after you watch this if the Trump campaign itself had decided to put out a report about what was going on, would it be substantially different from what Fox News Sunday reported at the beginning of their program over here? I don't think so. You can let me know what you think after we watch that clip over here.
Washington. Well, just 2 days after the New York Times said the Trump transition was in disarray, the president-elect named much of his national security team. That's far ahead of the timeline of other incoming presidents. Congressman Mike Pompeo to lead the CIA, Senator Jeff Sessions as Attorney General, and General Michael Flynn to be National Security Advisor. In a moment, we'll speak live with the Vice President-elect, Governor Mike Pence, who's leading the transition team about what's next. But we begin with Fox News correspondent Brian Yanis outside Trump National Golf Club in Bedminster, New Jersey, where Mr. Trump is conducting job interviews this weekend. Brian.
Hi, Chris. Well, Governor Mitt Romney met with President-elect Trump yesterday here at his New Jersey Golf Clubhouse for nearly 90 minutes. The Trump team characterizing the conversation as extremely positive and productive. Romney, who called Trump a con man during the campaign, could be a candidate for Secretary of State.
We had a far-reaching conversation with regards to the various theaters in the world where there are interests of the United States of real significance. We discussed those areas and exchanged our views on those topics.
Mr. Trump and his Vice President-elect Mike Pence met with 7 others, including retired Marine General James Mattis. They discussed ISIS, China, and NATO. A senior Trump official tells Fox News Mattis is a very strong candidate to be Defense Secretary. Today, the President-elect will meet with 7 others, including Governor Chris Christie, who was recently ousted as chairman of Trump's transition team, and Mayor Rudy Giuliani, both Trump loyalists eyeing cabinet positions. After a week of non-stop meetings, Mr. Trump gave reporters 2 thumbs up last night when asked how the transition was going.
We're seeing tremendous talent, people that, as I say, we will make America great again.
The president-elect says there's a good possibility we can expect to hear more cabinet announcements today. Chris?
Brian, thanks for that.
Ooh, the suspense. It's like The Apprentice. It's exactly, I've been watching cable news all day while I've been preparing the show. And even on the non-Fox News channels, they're like showing a little box in the corner. This is what's happening in, Bedminster, New Jersey. There could possibly be more announcements. The Trump campaign is doing this a lot more publicly than other transition teams have done it, where the people who are interviewed come out in front of the cameras and they make those little statements. And I don't know if Mitt Romney gets appointed Secretary of State. I'm going to talk about that after I show the last clip. There are 2 more clips left, and that's the last clip of Rand Paul specifically talking about Secretary of State and Mitt Romney versus Rudy Giuliani or John Bolton, the 2 neocon candidates. I'd be surprised if that Mitt Romney thing was anything more than a big show like The Apprentice. If Mitt Romney actually gets appointed, that would actually be a point in Donald Trump's favor that, we'll see if he does it. I don't know. I'm very skeptical. But before I get to the Rand Paul clip, the next clip I want to show is actually Reince Priebus talking about the problem with Jeff Sessions, the senator from Alabama, being appointed to be Attorney General, and he's most likely going to be Attorney General. And what mostly they've been talking about on Fox News, and apparently Reince Priebus is all primed to answer the question about these racist comments he made like back in the 80s and when he was up to be a federal judge appointed by Ronald Reagan and he didn't make it. It was because he said things, you know, like, oh, I used to like the KKK till I found out that they smoked marijuana, and he called like some African-American U.S. attorney boy, and said that white civil rights lawyers were race traitors, and the NAACP and the ACLU, which is my big organization that I volunteer for a lot, are un-American and communist-inspired, but that's all back from the 80s. But he also did a lot of things against voting rights, and he hasn't really been a big supporter of Justice Department investigation of police departments, and that's actually what Jake Tapper asked him about on CNN's State of the Union. And what I find most amusing about Reince Priebus's response is he responds about all that stuff back in the 80s. He's like all primed with his talking points on that Jake Tapper has to like pull him back to the answer, and I don't find it very reassuring. You can let me know what you think after we watch together over here.
Trump's pick for Attorney General, Alabama Senator Jeff Sessions. Democrats have criticized his record on civil rights issues and comments he allegedly made, though he denies it, about race years ago. I want to ask you a policy-related question about Attorney General Sessions, should he be confirmed. Under Attorney Generals Eric Holder and Loretta Lynch, the Justice Department has looked into local police departments, and their investigations found examples of systemic racism, and the Justice Department mandated reforms. Now, Senator Sessions has called such interventions an abuse of federal authority. Does that mean that under Attorney General Sessions, there will not be these kinds of investigations and federally mandated reforms of local police departments?
Well, first of all, I mean, that's a good question for Senator Sessions, but let me just hit this issue that you brought up initially, something he denies 30 years ago. Let's look at this man's life. I sure wish that people would judge me on my entire life, and I know that you and others out there watching wish the same. He started out his political career fighting George Wallace. He served an incredible career as a U.S. attorney, attorney general, filing one desegregation lawsuit after the next. He prosecuted that person that was alleged to in this story for the murder. He then presided over the execution of this person. He voted for Eric Holder. He fought for a congressional gold medal for Rosa Parks. This is an honorable, decent, good human being that we're talking about. I can assure you that if there's wrongdoing out there, whether it's on the streets or whether it's in the police department, no matter where it is, Senator Jeff Sessions is going to find it and bring justice to whoever justice needs to be brought to.
I guess my question, I don't want to get into a whole issue about, well, there's going to be confirmation hearings that examine all that, but he has called these interventions by the Justice Department into local police departments, he's called them intrusive. And I'm just wondering, for people out there who believe that there are issues with systemic racism in some police departments, with some police officers, not all, I'm wondering if they should expect that the Sessions Justice Department will not look into the behavior of local police departments.
Well, of course not. I mean, if there is, in fact, systemic racism, then I'm certain that he would. But I'm sure there's also cases where there have been intrusive investigations. Look, this is something for him to answer, but I can assure you that where wrongdoing is taking place, the Trump administration, along with, I'm sure, the soon-to-be Attorney General, will look into it.
Let's turn to your pick for...
I don't know. I don't really have much confidence in Senator Jeff Sessions or Donald Trump being the one to look into, you know, like the Ferguson Police Department and systemic racism. If you're someone who has read The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander, or even Matt Taibbi's The Divide, these two books I have over my left shoulder here, I think that, there are a lot of problems with the justice system, and Jeff Sessions and Donald Trump don't give me a lot of confidence that they're going to be attacking them. I had a little confidence in Hillary Clinton just based on some of the positions she took during the election, which were more progressive than some of her history and her husband's policies from the 1990s. But Jeff Sessions and Donald Trump, I don't have confidence in them at all on that issue. You can let me know what you think down in the comment section. And regarding opposition to cabinet officials, mostly cabinet officials, there is no filibuster. That was something that the Democrats got rid of in 2013, I think, which is pretty much okay with me. That that's not like a lifetime appointment like a Supreme Court justice or a federal judge, which is what Jeff Sessions didn't get to be in the 1980s. Attorney General is someone who is supposed to, implement the policies of the president. And, Jeff Sessions isn't any worse than Donald Trump on enforcing civil rights, unfortunately, I don't think. But the thing that might stop some of these nominees is if Republicans actually oppose them. And that's why I wanted to talk about the Secretary of State nomination, Mitt Romney versus John Bolton or Rudy Giuliani. There was actually one Republican who came on CBS's Face the Nation. This is Senator Rand Paul, who's kind of a non-interventionist, some people call isolationist Republicans, and he didn't want regime change and people who were unrepentant in their support of the Iraq War. He didn't want anyone who was like that. He thought Mitt Romney was a little better than John Bolton and Rudy Giuliani, and he said he might join with Democrats in opposing those nominations, as I will discuss with you after we watch that final clip together here.
Trump cabinet or possible Trump cabinet picks. You've said that you would block maybe Rudy Giuliani or John Bolton if they were put forward for positions in the Trump administration. Why?
Well, I supported Donald Trump, and one of the reasons I did was that I liked what he had to say about the Iraq War was a mistake. I think that's an important historical lesson. It's not a matter of when he said it or who he said it to. It's a matter of he understands that the Iraq War was a mistake and regime change was a mistake. So I think it would be inconsistent with his campaign theme. I want people that run the State Department who agree with Donald Trump, and so I'm trying to help. I'm trying to be helpful here. And the problem with both Bolton and Giuliani is they're unrepentant in their support for the Iraq War. They haven't learned any of the lessons. And if we don't learn the lesson of the Iraq War, we're liable to commit it again. This is something Hillary Clinton never understood. She said she voted for the Iraq War, but then she thought she was wrong, but then she did the same thing in Libya, the same thing in Syria. And I think regime change in the Middle East hasn't worked. And so I think it's important that we get someone head of the State Department that understands what Donald Trump said over and over again. The Iraq War was a mistake.
Would you include Mitt Romney, who Vice President-elect Mike Pence said is under consideration in that same basket?
I'm not sure I would call him unrepentant. I would say that he is somebody who has supported the Iraq War, and I would want to hear more. I think we should ask, no matter what the stature of the person, we should ask, what are your beliefs? Was the Iraq War a mistake? Are you for regime change? Do you think that toppling Assad in Syria will lead to a better world or a safer world? Do you think toppling, Gaddafi in Libya did? Do you think toppling Mubarak? All of these questions should be asked, and they're important questions, and I will ask that. As far as reasonability, if I were to rank Romney up there with someone who I think is a reasonable, even keel versus a Giuliani or a Bolton, I think Giuliani and Bolton are out there on the extreme. I don't think they're very diplomatic, and I think you want the chief diplomat to be diplomatic. And I've said before, Bolton might be better as a Secretary of War, but he's certainly not a diplomat or someone who acts in a diplomatic way or thinks that diplomacy might be an alternative to war.
Do you have any of your own candidates you put forward?
I'm afraid I don't get to pick. I wish I got to pick. But, they've said in the mix, Bob Corker was in the mix, and I also find him to be very reasonable, very knowledgeable with foreign affairs. As head of the Foreign Relations Committee, I think he's interacted with many of our foreign leaders. And I think that's what you want, is a reasonable, calming hand at the State Department. You don't want someone throwing bombs or advocating regime change. Both Bolton and Giuliani have advocated for regime change in Iran, and that doesn't sound like diplomacy. That sounds like war.
Right. Have you been contacted by...
I don't know. Bob Corker, I think, only looks reasonable if you put him next to John Bolton and Rudy Giuliani, but other than that, I pretty much agree with what Rand Paul said there, and I agree with Rand Paul about half the time, and this is one of those halves, I guess. And one of the interesting things about the Trump administration will be seeing how he creates coalitions of Republicans joining with Democrats to oppose him, and also maybe Democrats joining with some Republicans to support him on like infrastructure and other things that some Republicans might oppose. And since Donald Trump isn't a regular Republican, he may break regular coalitions and create new strange coalitions, and that's why I wanted to include that clip. But I'm way over time, and I need to finish up the show. I hopefully will have time to put up one of these edited, produced videos in the next week. Maybe that one on my book review I've been promising for so long on Who Cooked Adam Smith's Dinner will go out to the patrons sometime. When I finally get to finish it. I've been doing all this ACLU work that isn't public and apparent, but may sometime in the next few weeks become more public. There may be something I can talk about on December 11th when I have to go to this ACLU meeting instead of doing my show. But anyway, I didn't want to get into all that, but if you want to support my show, you can just give me a thumbs up like I said at the beginning, or post your comments both for the live viewers and for the recorded show. Share my video on social media if you like it, and of course, if you want to give me financial support to offset the lack of monetization I sometimes get from YouTube for sensitive videos or for copyright claims like I did the day after the election, you can give me fan funding by clicking on this little eye in the corner here if you live in one of the 8 countries where they allow fan funding, or you can become one of my patrons on Patreon, link down in the video description. I've gotten more funding and more patrons since Donald Trump became president, and since I talked about maybe not continuing in my show, but I will be continuing my show for the foreseeable future, covering the dishonesty in the media when I can find it, and certainly in the Trump administration where I'm sure I will find it. And until next week, and until I have time to put up another one of my edited, produced videos, thanks for joining me, and I guess I will be seeing all of you around the internet.